Hey guys, how are you? Welcome to All Star Insights. This is where we give great youth baseball initiative and talk. I'm sponsored by Kids on First and Tuckahoe Sports Incorporated. Today we have a lovely guest who's a master coach. He's one of the best of them of all time, Kevin Wilson. Please welcome him to our show. I am Robert Ashford, aka Coach Rock, the co-host, and we have Sherry Kearney, who is also the CEO of Kids on First, and she's the co-host standing in for the one of the greatest coaches in the world as well, Chris McKnight, who can't be here with us right now. But we're here to go ahead and start the show. How you doing today, Kevin?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. To quickly start off with you, Kevin, and based on your history, can you kind of tell us how you really dived or dove into coaching and how you took a deep dive into understanding that that was your niche and how you wanted to help move forward in your career with that?
Sure. I always lead off with that question of it wasn't my first choice. Like a lot of kids growing up, I wanted to play in the big leagues and be retired by the time I was 40 and then go play golf every day.
Okay.
So as you go through growing up, you're thinking about yourself and you're thinking about, like a lot of kids, you're thinking about how can I better myself through my playing career if you are playing. And so I had the opportunity to play college and professionally. And then when I was done, I had already, in my professional career, I'd already opened up a baseball academy and I was giving lessons. This was 25 years ago. Lessons were not as robust and grand and kind of what it is today, but people were seeking some guidance in hitting or pitching or whatever. And certainly I started with hitting. And as I was going through, I always say, I wish I could call those first lessons back and say, I apologize because I didn't have, I just knew I was a switch hitter and I just knew what I knew. And I didn't know what I know now. And certainly, you're not going to know everything, always continuing to learn and grow and that way. So when I got done playing, I was doing lessons. I had a business. I was learning so much. And then it was probably a couple years after I was done playing that I just started to realize maybe I have a gift. Maybe God has blessed me with a gift to interact with people, to see things, be able to help them sift through the clutter, and find the clarity to what they are trying to do. And so I had the great fortune of coaching in the Cape when I got done playing, and for Mike Roberts and Katuitt. The best thing apart about that was it was 44 games, and if I loved it, it was 44 games, and if I didn't like it, it was only 44 games. It wasn't 140 or 160. And I never got the chance to play in the Cape. So for me, that was just on a couple different levels, a really neat experience. And that's when I really started to feel like, okay, I think I could be of service in this game and carve off a little bit of a niche to help guys just walk through their at bats, their careers, their lives in a way that's just not a hitting coach. It becomes more of a mentorship. So that's kind of when I started to really dive into the mentor piece.
That's awesome. That's awesome. When you're taking a look at coaching that rec ball kid, right, who's just now coming into the scene of fundamentals and understanding the game as far as having fun, how do you help that rec ball kid transition into higher competitive play and dealing with travel ball? Because as a coach of me now, I'm a 13U travel ball coach, right? And I've seen kids that have come on that may have started late and they were rec ball kids. How do you help not um, make them be discouraged and actually want to, give up the game and encourage them to stay in there?
Man, what a great question. I'll start off by saying 13 years old is the first retirement age in baseball, right? When they go to the big field, a lot of kids retire because the big field is a big transition, right? You go from, the little league field and maybe your ball in the gap is a double. Maybe you do hit a home run. But you go to the big field, maybe that double in the gap is caught by the shortstop. That fly ball, that home run is now a fly ball being caught. So I start there by saying, like, congratulations to the 13U kids. They've passed the first retirement stage and they're still playing it right now, right? Because it is tough. It's a really tough transition. The second part to that is I think that you really coach the fundamentals of the game and make it fun for them at that little league level. And my son was a part of the Anderson Monarchs in Philadelphia, and Monet Davis played for them, and it is a storied inner city. Steve Bandura runs that phenomenal program, and my son loved his time there. But what they do a really good job of, to your question, is they make it sure that these kids understand the game. They understand rundowns, cuts, and relays, the fundamentals, how to field a ground ball, how to throw accurately. But they make it fun for the kids because also that Anderson Monarch group are trained to be athletes. They play soccer together, they play basketball together, and they play baseball together. So they go through the entire year like old school. Back when I was growing up, is you played soccer with the same kids, basketball with the same kids, and my case was hockey, and then you play baseball with the same kids. So you get to build this camaraderie with each other, and you're going through life together. And some days are going to be bad, some days are going to be good, but he's teaching them not only the stuff on the field fundamentally, but also off the field. How to respect your coaches, how to be on time, how to organize things from a young age. And he's molding them and shaping them to be better people, not just better ball players. And I've seen the retention rates, especially with the Anderson Monarchs, be so great because of that, is the way that they do it from the very early age.
That is awesome. I love knowing that they're building people and not just players, because we hear so much about how parents want their kids to have the best ERA and the best hitting and the best of everything. But what parent is finally going to step up and say, you know what, I want my kid to be a great baseball player, but more than that, I want them to be a good person and to success, not only as a player, but as a person. So can you talk about one thing that you brought in from mentality from playing in the majors and in college to these youth that is something that stuck with you that you know is going to stick with them?
Yeah, well, first of all, I was a career minor leaguer like most of the guys were, and so I think the lessons from that is first and foremost, it's really hard to get to where you want to go. And just because you don't get to the final destination doesn't mean you're not a success. I think that's the big lesson learned is when, like, your first questions, like, how did I know when I kind of had, like, this was my path? Well, I had already tried to go one way, and then the lessons and the experiences that I had from that have absolutely helped me on this new path. So in terms of, I always tell the parents, I said, listen, your son is not going to play in the big leagues. And they're like, wow, why don't you tell my son that? Well, I'm not good at math, but you have to be realistic with the parents and say
Absolutely.
that,
That's a
listen,
bold move.
there's only 7% of college, of high school players that get to play in any level of college. Everybody wants to go to Division One. I was grateful to be able to play Division One. That's 2%. Now you get drafted, that's 1%. And then you get to the big leagues, that's the 1% of the 1%. So again, I'm not good at math, but that makes sense to me that the majority of the kids growing up are not going to be able to play past high school and certainly past college. So, to your point, if we are real with the parents and saying, why are we doing this? Why are we chasing 100-game seasons and traveling all over the world to go chase after a scholarship that doesn't exist for your son?
Hmm.
Meaning that even in today's climate and recruiting, my son's a junior. He's going through all this recruiting. It is the Wild West, and that's a whole nother podcast. But when you go through this, even under the old rules, there was 11.7 scholarships for 35 to 45 guys. Again, you don't have to be good at math to understand this is not football or basketball or some of the other sports where if I'm spending all this money to go chase something that actually I'm not going to be able to get. Doesn't mean you can't play in college, doesn't mean, but I would rather pour that money into, like you were talking about earlier, coach, is to be able to say, okay, how can I develop the player and the person? But can I take those resources and spend it on, in rec ball? Like, hey, listen, if they're going to bring somebody in for a couple weeks and do this, and I'll spend $100 just as a number to go get my son better rather than the $100 to go get on a plane and go fly and play 4 games in 2 days to do what? So I've always pounded the table on that, saying like, parents, we are unrealistic about our expectations. We're unrealistic about our path, and not a lot of parents like that, right?
No,
So
not at
sometimes the truth
all.
hurts. So I think again, timing and tone and communication, I always believe is important, but it's our job, I feel, as coaches and leaders to share with people and to lay it out, say, this is the way it is, just to give you a heads up, this is what's coming. You may have this idea of what it is, roses and rainbows, but at the end of the day, this is actually what it is. And I almost try to scare them off saying, if you still want this, then okay, if that doesn't scare you, you might have a shot to sell out to the process of it, not so much to sell out to the result of it or to say at the holiday party, I'm going to go to such and such school or such and such that school as they get older. And they go to that school and they never play. And then all of a sudden we have a discussion next holiday of where did they transfer to?
Good
You
point.
might be the bravest person in youth baseball because
Oh,
that is,
man, that
oh my
my
God.
if I said that, my attrition level would be so high
That's
that I would be
awesome.
rebuilding a new team every year.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that's the hypersensitivity of the parents now and the kids in the era that we live in. And based on that hypersensitivity, I want to touch on a question that I have. And as a coach, how do you earn the trust of your players?
That is not a simple answer to it, but I think it's a very in depth answer to it. So, first of all, everybody's different. And because of that, I have to get to know you. I have to get to know you on a personal level the best I can. That will all depend on how much actual time we get to spend with each other, right? So, if going back to the Monarch model, if I'm spending time with you on the soccer field and the basketball court and the baseball field, because the coaches in that program coach all of those sports. So, like, they're spending time all year round. So, they get to know you, how you react to something on the soccer field. Maybe that's not your best sport. How you react to something on the basketball court. Maybe that's your best sport. How you react to something on the baseball field. Maybe that's kind of like your middle sport. So, I think the time spent with the player helps me ask questions to get to know them. I do not like putting out answers, say, you got to do this, you got to do that. I want to figure out, ask, hey, like what do you like to do? Like what pitch do you like to hit from a hitting side? I'm just giving you very kind of general questions. Fielding wise, do you like to play the infield or the outfield better? Catchers, why do you catch? Like why do you put yourself through all that? You know, especially in the youth level where you're not playing catch, you're playing more fetch because it's behind you. Then you have to go chase after it like my son did. And so, and also too, from even the older kids, a little bit more so of, okay, like what's home life like? What do you like? You know, do you have a girlfriend? Do you drive? What's the family life like? What's your worries, doubts, fears? Like, what are you worried about? Oh, getting into college. What do you worry about making varsity? With the youth level, it's trying to figure out of, are they scared of the ball? Do they? And when you watch them through situations, maybe they're pressure situations, maybe they don't swing the bat, but like the first inning, they are just taking hacks. Little things like that that open up conversations to ask, like, hey, why? I'm just curious, like, why weren't you swinging a bat in that fifth inning there where we had bases loaded? Because you looked really good in that first inning. Was there anything going through your mind, or kind of walk me through it and getting to know them? Because I think that's where then they gain trust, where it's like, I'm not yelling at you. I want to genuinely get to know you. And then when I suggest something, again, these are not, you have to do this. When I suggest something, it's because of the fact that I've worked a long time to get to know you, ask questions about you, and not power coach you. That therefore, all of a sudden now I have something to suggest. They're going to be like, oh, maybe I'll take that into consideration or try that
So
with
being
that. So it
observant
takes
is
time.
really important. Like observing everything, not just on the field, but off the field too. Being observant of how the entire student is at all points.
So it's crucial to that. I think also, if you want, this is the way I do it. I'll take it even a step further. I'll ask teachers, right? Teachers that I know that have them in class, have them way more than not all the time will you be able to know the teachers or whatever. But if I, like, my buddy's a gym teacher at, great, you're the gym teacher at the school. What's he like in class every day or every week? Like, is he the class clown in there, or does he listen to you? Certain movements or games, does he really interact with it, or does he stay away from the monkey bars or whatever it is? Like, are you, like, what, how are they away from the field? And it really is, it's when I gave lessons, that was for me, it's like, listen, I'm just going to watch you hit off the tee, do your thing, and don't be alarmed if I don't say anything. To your point, like, I just want to observe. You just came off the street, I had never seen you before. Your parent brought you. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know what you like, what you don't like. If you stand on top of your head and hit line drives, I've never seen that before, but we're going to go with that. And by the way, you need to teach me how that works, because I'm not going to take that away from you. I had coaches as a switch hitter, as I mentioned earlier, I had them try to take my swing away. And that was a thing. If I ever got into coaching, I would never do that to somebody, what was done to me.
I like on that point. I'm glad you're bringing up all my next points coming up, because at the end of the day, how do you balance your teaching fundamentals with letting players develop their own style?
So that's a principles versus philosophies thing for me. So for principles, for example, like they're non-negotiable. If you just take a principle for hitting is I'm going to hit a fastball in my zone on a line to center field. Like that's my principles. Like that's my approach. That's my principles. Like, but the philosophy is stand on your head. Your style is your philosophy, right? Open stance, closed stance, leg kick, no stride, hands up, hands down, as long as it works for you. So we have to have a principle that's non-negotiable that people can't poke holes in. Your style, your philosophy is going to differ depending on the player. So you have a lot of schools, colleges, high schools, some pros, that organizations that try to make everybody the same. And what happens is not everybody is the same. So I think when you have a principle foundation and then you have a flexible philosophy, that's where I found where you make the most of your player.
That is crazy that you brought that up, because this past season, there are two baseball players that I'm thinking of specifically. Royce Lewis from the Twins, and then Josh Naylor, who is now with Seattle. He's a free agent. Royce Lewis was asked to change his swing because there were some things that were a little bit off, right? Same with Josh Naylor. He was asked to change his swing a little bit, even his brother Bo. Royce said, no, thank you. He said, if I make adjustments right now, I spend the rest of the season with my numbers tanking, and I'm not about that life. And Josh made the adjustments, and it helped. Bo spent every single game, and if you watch his tape, you will see how the inside foot, the step foot, how everything progressed. And it sucked at first, don't get me wrong. But then he helped make the advance to the postseason. So I just thought it was interesting, and no shade to Royce. Like you said, his philosophy is his philosophy. But for those hitters, for those players, how do you work with someone like a Royce Lewis who says, no, thank you, I'm just not there yet? And then you see other guys like Bo and Josh who are making those adjustments. Like, how hard is that as a coach to teach the philosophy is okay, but the other, what did you say, philosophy and principle? Yeah. Can you just break that down for those two types of players?
Yeah, that's a great example. What I see lacking in the game with coaches, not all, because there's still some really good coaches in the game, but what's happened at the pro level is you have a lot of coaches that have been created in the lab with not a lot of experience on the field. So you have the best coaches in the game have had that experience of what it feels like to make adjustments, to be in the box, to face major league pitching every day, and also understand how the body moves, the approach, and the kind of the way that players operate. I boiled out all that down to feel. You have to have tremendous feel. We talked about timing and tone in our communication. We have to have tremendous feel when to introduce something or suggest something. And it all goes back down to and I'm not faulting the Twins because you're trying to help the player. You have a guy, Royce Lewis, who's incredibly uber talented, right? Part of his problem, kind of like his teammate Buxton, is it's hard to stay on the field. So that's a whole other issue, right? To be able to stay on the field. But when you go to somebody during the season, it's almost like you are walking on eggshells, so to speak, depending on the player that you got. Because if you make a suggestion to make an adjustment, that goes back to the trust. Like, I got to really know that what I suggest, the timing of it's correct, and what I suggest is going to work. Because here's the thing, and I'll kind of land the plane on this part, is when you do have feel or when you don't have feel, what happens is either way, if you suggest something to that player, it better work the first time, because if not, you lost the trust in them.
That is absolutely, and and a lot of people were mad, not necessarily I don't know. It was a mixed bag, but I thought it was interesting that he literally stood there and said, no, thank you. Like, that's not something I'm willing to do right now. And he stood there and said that. Now, PR aside, people are like, oh, he needs to learn how to talk. But does he? He's confident enough in himself to know that what he does do works. And so I just find that really interesting that you said timing, place, and trust. What would you feel like if one of your hitters said, you know what, no thanks, I know where I'm at. I know what I'm doing. I'm just not ready to take that step yet. How do you feel as that coach then?
Well, first of all, let's take Royce's, keep on that example. Like it's a lot easier to say that when you're Royce Lewis in the big leagues than if
Okay,
you
fair.
are Kevin Wilson in A ball, right? So there is that dynamic where he has a little bit more runway
Yes.
to say something like that. The second part to that is I've had guys come to me over the years be like, Kev, I'm just not comfortable doing that right now, right? And that's part of like the learning curve of like I've learned over time like when to say something, when not to say something, when to introduce something. Because right now, as we record this in the off season, this is a tremendous spot to start making adjustments. Doesn't mean that in season adjustments don't work. I've certainly done that, but Royce Lewis, good for him to stand up for what he believed in. The 1A to that though is, brother, my man, it better work. Whatever you are pounding the table on and dying on that hill, it better work.
I trust him.
Because not right, just not for the not for the PR, right? Not for that, but for the your career, your earning season, right? Because these again, this is a business, not a game. So now we're transitioning into a whole other conversation. Is if you do stand up for what you believe, you better be barreling up baseballs for the next 6 weeks. And that's where I help players too. Is if your coach suggests something, we be respectful in the moment. Yes, sir. But if it's not working for you, you try it and then go off on your own and fix it and make sure you're doing it. Or you nod to the turtle, say, yes, sir. And then you just do what you normally do, but you better square it up.
Absolutely.
And then they say, see, I told you. And you're like, thank you very much. I appreciate that. That helped. And you're not arrogant. You're just trying to the fine line of like, I'm still trying to be me, like Royce. I'm trying to be me. This is the best version of myself right now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to sell out all to this, but it better work.
Okay.
Absolutely. I said that this past weekend, by the way.
Did you really?
Yeah. I said it on a 3-0 count, right? We teach our kids the discipline, and we talk about some of those principles, right? That 3-0 count, you have the red light at 13U on a 3-0 count on my team.
Okay.
Based on the scenarios, kids be on the base, and that's where I wanted to go in this particular question. As a coach, what pitch count do you tell youth ball players to focus? What part of the pitch count are you letting them know to be the most aggressive?
Well, I love the 3-0 swing because I want them to understand that the 3-0 is the same as the 0, same as the 1-0, same as the 2-0.
Like,
Yeah.
Now, there are moments in the game, obviously the 3-0. There's moments in the game where the kids walk 3 guys already and has thrown 12 straight balls. We're not swinging, right? Take those out of it, but generally speaking, right? I want them to swing the bat, and I don't care if they swing outside the zone, in the zone, because I want them to know by swinging the bat more, like in wiffle ball growing up, what I can and cannot hit in the zone, out the zone, up, down. I don't feel that youth players swing enough, meaning in a game, they don't swing the bat enough. And because of that, they put themselves into this, like, it's got to be right here. Listen, my son did it too. It's like you right here. And if it's not there, I'm not swinging. And then they're hearing it from a coach saying like, swing the bat. And then they're like, all this. So I would rather with the youth players, swing it everything so you know what you can and can't hit. And then over time, as you get older, then we can bring it in depending on the zones. And obviously, as they get older, the strike zones shrink. Thank the Lord that the strike zones are this big when they're 11, or else the games will be 5 hours long, right? Like I don't. Some parents get up in arms. I don't care. Like let's move it on. Let's go. Let's get our innings in. Let's get our pitches. Like that's just me. But with that, with your question, I want them to be aggressive. I would rather them be over aggressive than passive. And I think that's just an over on the base pass. I want you to go first to third and get thrown out by a half a mile, because what has the last 2 generations now, I'm 47 years old. The last 2 generations right now have not played in the backyard like my generation did.
100, yes.
So right. So like with that being said, in the backyard, I got hosed by a half a mile. I got hosed at 7 years old, and I learned that by 7.5 years old, like not to do that. And if Todd or Eric was playing in the outfield and the ball went to them, they had hoses, so I knew I couldn't go anywhere. But if Al over here had it, then I knew I could take an extra base. But I played every day.
Yes.
So when we try to teach aggressiveness, I want them to be aggressive on the base pass. I want them to take the extra base. I want them to steal. I don't care. I want them to experience failure. I also want them to experience success. I want them to experience the backyard more. So when it's 3-0, oh, whatever, I want them to be aggressive. Two strikes, I want them to be aggressive. Like I want them at the younger age. I want them to realize what's a strike, what's not a strike. Because the simple hitting principle philosophy, because I've had organizations say, hey, what's your hitting philosophy? Swing and strikes and take balls. Period. That's it.
Very
Like
good.
that's it. Swing and strikes, say, well, how do you get to that? Well, all this other stuff we're talking about is like, I want you to swing at everything so you know what you can and can't hit. So I am all for being aggressive. I would rather err on the side of aggressiveness because we can always pull them back. It's hard to push young people in any generation. It's hard to push them forward. But the last point on that I'll make, in my experience, the guys that do want it, who want to get better, who want to get coached, are no different than any other generation. They're out there still. But I always tell those guys, it's never been easier to separate yourself from the pack.
Facts.
Especially right now. How do you encourage kids to separate themselves? How do you encourage kids? You basically just said that there's, the 7%, the 1%, and the 1% of the 1%. So for me, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? Like I can't want it more than my kids. And that's frustrating for me because I want to give it all to them and you have it all. So why are you not taking it? How do you, as a coach, deal with that personally? And not that you take offense to it, because I don't, but how do you lead them there and still keep them interested outside of fun? Like, what else is there?
I think it just goes back to the honesty piece. I mean, two things come to mind. One, I'm just a seed planter. I'm planting the seeds and I'm showing you, like, hey, listen, it's not the talent necessarily, it's the processes and the systems and the disciplines that you go about your daily habits, right? Daily habits. What do you do? My son, just at 16 as a junior in high school, I'll use him as an example for the second part. He's grown up in the game his whole life. He actually just took it on as a freshman in high school. He was a hockey player growing up, so like he played a little bit of baseball, Monarchs and others places, but it wasn't like his big main sport. But he came to work with me all the time. Grew up in big league clubhouses and around stadiums and all that kind of stuff. So he was getting seeds planted in a lot of different ways, not from me, which was great, because I'm trying to be coach and dad. And that's another thing. Remind me to talk about that when I finish this, because that's an important part of this, is that when it comes to planting seeds with these players, it's more so not the mechanic of the game. It's more so of the daily disciplines and daily habits. So nutrition, sleep, work ethic, work smarter, don't work harder. Everybody's swinging a bat 100 times, but can you swing a bat 30 times to get more out of it than 100? And then be able to go and do this and this and this and take care of the classroom stuff. It's the planting the seeds of the disciplines and all the things that make you successful no matter what. Business, sports, life. Show me your daily disciplines and I'll show you how successful you're going to be or not be.
Absolutely.
And
So
so
talk
that's
about,
where
go ahead. No, please.
To that point. I want to bring in the parents on this.
Yes.
What should parents focus on and not focus on as their kids develop through the process that you just outlined?
And talk about the daddy baseball or you being a father of a baseball player.
Absolutely.
he's the hardest client I've ever had, by the way.
Facts. I was about to say that. I am the father of his.
But he's such a good kid. He's like, it's just clicked now, so it's a lot better. But I came up with that before I answer your question. I came up with that where, I asked him in the cage all the time. I haven't asked him in a long time now. Do you want me to be dad or do you want me to be coach? Before we started any session, cage, catching work, whatever. Because what was happening was, what's my default? Coach. What do I make a living at? Teaching, right? So my default is I want to help you. I want to serve. Problem is, if the player, in this case my son, does not want to be coached that day and I'm pouring into him, what's that going to cause? A lot of fighting, a lot of friction. So when I said, do you want me to be coach or dad? That gave me the rules of engagement for that session, for that day. And so with that, okay, I want to be coach. Okay. Now I know how to approach you. You want me to be dad? I'll just put balls on the tee. I'll flip. I'll put it in the machine. Maybe a couple, hey, good job. And then that's it. Like no coaching. And that helped. Now, it didn't alleviate 100% of the stuff. It probably 90% of it though, because sometimes he blurred the lines. He'd say coach, and all of a sudden now or dad, and all of a sudden you want to be coach. I'm like, whoa, 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 you can't do that to me. I said, this is so teaching him that kind of like follow through lesson as well with that. So, and remind me, I'm sorry, the parent question
Oh yeah, yeah,
you
yeah. I
had?
was saying, which parents focus on and or not focus on as
Mm,
their kids
yeah.
develop.
Play the long game. Play the long game, number one. A lot of parents play the short game. Johnny's not playing short bat and third today when he's 10. I don't care. No one's going to remember that game, right? That's where I think again, they live in the moment. As a parent, I'm saying this as a parent. I'm not saying this as a coach that doesn't have kids. I'm in it. I've been through that youth. Like I'm in it. So this is coming from all my experience of seeing parents in the academy do it right and do it wrong. So they gave me a great parenting lesson, but also I'm going through my own stuff and have come through that part of it. Like no one, we don't talk about what he did when he was 11 with the Monarchs. We don't talk about that. It's like, oh yeah, you remember that? We were at that field in Mayfair. You remember like that hit you had? No, we're not talking about that. No one cares about. Hey, do you remember when we, got boat raced by 20 runs? That parent was mad. No, no one. We don't talk about that. No one worries about that. So play the long game, number one, meaning that your kid is going to go through, as you guys know, such a many phases of development,
Absolutely.
mentally, emotionally, physically, right? And so with that comes why we're playing the long game. The second part to that is because we're playing the long game, I need to focus on what my son or daughter, what my child needs the most in this given season of life or in this given day, right? So, does he need to learn how to put all his baseball uniform together to be able to hit out the door? Does he know how to act and interact and look at the coach in the eye when the coach is talking to them, or are they just messing around? Like, can we teach them how to be young people first? To your point, young people first. And can we build those daily disciplines in there so that they know how to actually operate? Because I'm in this phase right now. I only have them under our roof for another 2 years, not even year and a half. Right. We're almost halfway through junior year. Right. So, like, what is my job? To pour into him as much as I can so he's equipped to be able to make decisions on his own and choices on his own. Nowhere in that do I say, I want him to hit 500 this year. I want him to start every day. I want him to, because that stuff, you look in the big leagues of guys that got drafted really low in the old system, played Division 3, JUCO, uh, was on nobody's radar, but all of a sudden now, they're playing in the big leagues or they're playing a long time in the big leagues. If you look back and reverse engineer that, those guys learned those daily disciplines, and the people that were around them played the long game because there's so many kids. Again, that's why I say there's the 13-year-old's retirement age, right? You got Jimmy over there hitting bombs, but then he quits baseball by the time he gets to 14. And the parents thought that the kid had a shot to get to the league. Well, he retired at 14 for whatever the reasons were. So enjoy the journey. Enjoy your time with your kids, because I sure as heck am enjoying the time with my son because he's going to be off doing his own thing. He's driving, he's doing things. So I have even less time with him now. And so with that being said, so I think parents get, as we all know, get too wrapped up in it. They don't play the long game. And they don't teach life lessons through the game of baseball.
So I think it's funny that you said that because we just had Jay Jackson on right before. Well, you saw him. You popped in. He was 2008, drafted 281, and had 17 years in the major leagues. That is, we just don't hear enough
And
stories
faced
like
everybody.
that. And faced everybody, to include Judge and Shohei. So, we don't have those talks enough. So can you talk to me about how you work with the parents to help them? Like you say, you've got to be the bravest or like craziest person in youth baseball to talk to the parents the way that you do. So can you talk about how you really truly address the parents that yell at you for not having their kid in the lineup, or they sat this important game? Like how can you tell parents, listen, it is about the long game. Listen, it is about the basics. No, I don't hate your son. Yes, we have many more opportunities. How do you address the parents that tend to get all ridiculous about certain things?
Yeah, great question. I will touch upon the if you Google players that have played 10 years in the big leagues, because 10 years is full pension that you get. So it's hard to get to the big leagues, it's even harder to stay. The names on that list, I tell people all the time, if you Google 10-year big leaguers and the names on those lists are going to be people like, that guy played 10 years or 17 years or 15 years. How did that guy play? No way he played that long, right? But those are the ones, resilience, right? And being disciplined and all that. As far as the parents, the way that I've handled it in the past is like, number one, and same thing with hitters, even if it's without the parents. I'm not for everybody, but I am for somebody.
Mm.
And before we even start this, here are the rules of engagement. Let's go back to that again. Here are the rules of engagement. This is what I require from you. I don't require for your son to make every play. I don't require for your son to again, hit 500. I require these things from the parents, almost like a family contract of what I expectations of the parents and the expectations of the player. And if any of those are broken, there's a meeting and or we make adjustments. And I think that's where I found the most success is you have to recruit the parent. The colleges do this. You got to recruit the parent more so than the kid because the kids are not making the decisions, right? Especially at that young age. Kid's just looking for some snacks and he's like, oh, where are we going today? And we're going to the field. The parent has this all mapped out on, again, there's their kids' trajectory, thinking it's going to be some sort of like, if I don't play him today, then all of a sudden now it's going to go down. We're not going to be able to get back up in time, that kind of stuff. So I think it's you recruit the parents the correct way if you can, because not all the time you are. So if you can recruit the parents, recruit better parents. If you can't, which is in a lot of cases, rec ball or whatever, you just get thrown with a bunch of parents. Honesty is the best policy. And if they still are not liking what you're doing, I always say love them out the door. Love them out the door. This may not be the place for you. I wish you all the best, but we cannot have this here. If you want this, this experience is not for you. There are other places out there that are like that I'd be happy to even share with you, perhaps even to go look. But we just can't, if you can't follow this and you're the only one, or because this is what happens, right? Like it's usually one parent, but then they recruit the other parents, right? And it's wild what I don't know what it is by you guys, but like it's wild over here.
Yes.
Like there are parents drinking at the games and there's fights and there's police officers and there's so much stuff, and maybe it's an East Coast thing, but like there is so much stuff that happens that I'm like, what are we doing? What are we doing? But it's usually one, maybe two parents. And then if that seeps in, if you let them stay long enough, then they infiltrate and they infect some of the other parents. And now you got half the team fighting over what are we fighting about? So those are two things: recruit the parents, but if you can't, lay the rules down and adhere to those rules. And if not, love them out the door.
What do you say? What do you say to that parent that whose kid continues to jump from team to team to team? I mean, he's probably
Ooh.
got more jerseys than you could ever imagine in travel ball and hasn't even got a chance to make it to somewhere really big or make it to high school where he doesn't have that option. What do you say to that parent or to that matter, to that fact?
You're doing your kid a disservice because when they're out of the house, their life is going to be really hard for them because that's all they know. They're going to jump from relationship to relationship. They're going to jump from job to job. Not going to have, they have no resilience. They like resilience is a big word for me because in life, right, we're going to get knocked down, but how do we get back up? We have to follow by rules. And oh, by the way, life's not fair all the time. So like, are you going to earn what you want in life? Or is mom and dad just going to create a team? That's how we got to this place in the first, this here in the first place, because Johnny couldn't make that team. So dad made the team. And Eddie didn't make that team. So dad made that team. Now we have two extra teams in the area. Right. And baseball's watered down that way. So what do we, my question back to them is like, what are we teaching? What are you teaching your son or daughter? Like, what are we teaching our children to fend for themselves and to be able, when they get knocked down, how do they respond? Because there's two things to it. For me, it's they either react or respond. Reacting is an emotional response to something that happened that's not in your favor. The more mature part of it is responding. Respond to something that doesn't go your way, right? And I think how you respond literally changes the situation you're in, right? So if you react, if you got cut from the team and you're reacting, and we got emails going, and the parent and the
Facebook.
kid's sitting there listening to the parent complain, then what's the kid's going? Oh yeah, like I deserve that. Like this. No, you couldn't catch a ground ball. Like that's why you're not on the team. But your parent is not willing to tell you the truth. Going back to tell you the truth, not willing to tell you the truth. Like we need to work on this. Like my son was, when he first started out, was not the best player on the team. He was behind a lot of those guys. But I told him, I said, these are the areas you need to work in, and it's up to you if you want to work in it. I will be there for you, but you got to go work at it. I'm not going to go drag you out of the house to go work on it. And it took a little bit of time for him to do it. Now he's like, we're doing this, and this, nutrition, whoop band, all that kind of stuff. Like, he is on top of everything. But at the very beginning, when he was younger, he wasn't the best. And I told him, like, hey, dude, like, he knew he wasn't the best. These kids aren't dumb. They know. If the parents say, oh, you're better than Johnny at shortstop, and shortstop Johnny over there, like, he's like one of the best dudes I've ever seen at 11 years old or 12. You're not better than him. Well, but you see some of those things. Yeah, that's the way you do it. And I think these are some of the ways that you need to get better. I'm not trying to make you him, because everybody's individual, but here's the reasons why he's playing more than you. So I think really being truthful with the parent comes back to that. Not everybody's going to like it, but at the end of the day, you're not teaching your son or daughter how to address situations and how to self-evaluate. It's one of the hardest things to do, is to self-evaluate. How can we teach our youth to self-evaluate more? We got to give them more credit. I think people don't give them enough credit. They know they're not dumb, like I said, but we got to give them a space and a place that's safe to be able to do that.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. I thank you for that.
Yeah.
Well, we thank you for so much insight today, Coach Wilson, aka Master Coach. We definitely needed that insight for parents and just for the overall development of the whole baseball community to have an understanding. Let's get out of the cliche of entitlement and what's expect, and get more into the honesty and the gruntness of development, understanding who you are and where you are as a player. We definitely appreciate that insight.
Yeah, I was actually learning things. I work in baseball on the corporate side, on the back end of everything. So I am working more with the players to try and understand exactly who they are, make sure that I have the right coaches. And I think things like this need to be addressed, because there's those of us who do run organizations who need to be more aware of the people that we're bringing into our kids' lives. And I think that you are, probably one of the best people we've had on, simply because you're able to truly speak the truth, which people don't do a lot of these days. And that is something that I think we need more of. So we really appreciate you being on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Can you let the people know where to find you and where you, as far as your social media, and how can they have access to you?
Sure. Easiest way is to go to kwbaseball.com. I'm on X and Facebook and Instagram at kwbaseball. So they're all the same.
Well,
And
that's even better yet.
I started early. All that was set up like 15 years ago. So the names were still available.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for showing up. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I had a blast.
Absolutely. Well, there you are. There you are, guys. All-Star Insights with Kevin Wilson, one of the greatest master coaches to ever bring a sense of mindset into the game and brutal honesty.
Brutal honesty.
Just letting you know. And here I am, Coach Rock, with Sherry Kearney.
Yeah.
Who is co-hosting for Chris McKnight, by the way. That's why we're a little
we got
we're a little off, but we got this. All right. We thank you guys.
Have a great rest of your day, and thank you again, Kevin. Awesome.